Tuning into the Beer Hammer podcast. This is episode 9. My name is Eric. I'm your main host, and I'm joined today by Paul, whose last name I can't ever remember.
That part's not important.
No, it's not. But Paul's here again, and so is Andrea.
Hola.
And we're all going to be talking about various different things in the 40K universe. The Beer Hammer podcast, as always, is geared more towards you and your buddies playing, beer and pretzel games in the comfort of your own home and basement or at your local FLGS with a few buddies. And we're not focusing big on the gigantic tournament scene or anything crazy like that. While we did have a tournament recently, which was a lot of fun. We did the Hobby League, the ending tournament that we talked about last episode. That happened on Sunday. And I think Paul was technically the winner, though he shouldn't have been.
Psh, that's not what happened. Don't tell these people.
Chris gave you three wins.
Well,
and everybody else had 2.
It's gotta pander to the boss. That's the only way to properly do it, right?
We only did 2 rounds.
I mean, I needed a third win. I don't know what happened there.
The third round was the bonus round of Kill the Titan. But
so the blessing worked.
Yeah,
nice,
pretty much.
Nice.
I guess you could say that.
Just not for the Titan.
But the second place was actually Derek.
Yeah, see?
Yeah. So real first place was Derek.
Yeah. Real first place was Derek. So good job, Derek.
Awesome, Derek.
The last game that he and I played together, we both agreed was probably the absolute most fun game of 40K we've ever played.
Yeah, he did say that. He told me a little bit about it.
It was ridiculously fun. It was like every single turn, every single dice roll, it was like the game hinged on it, and it all just like super mattered, and it was all super important, and it was like, oh my god, what's gonna happen next? And eventually he did take down my Knight Castellan.
Now there's a small chance that extreme importance may be related to the amount of alcohol you consumed during or around that event.
I had 1 beer at lunch.
Oh, well, probably not that opportunity.
Nope. We had both Derek and I had the Cubano espresso beer that Spirits Tavern had. It was delicious.
Did it taste like Cubanos?
Yeah, it had a
the
very
sandwich, straight up like the sandwich, because I'm a fat kid.
No.
That's what I do.
I meant Cubans. No,
it tasted like pork and coffee. No, it actually just tasted like a lot of yummy, flavorful espresso coffee.
Nice.
So, and since I can't actually drink coffee, I like coffee flavored things because I still enjoy the taste of coffee. I just can't have it. So,
I almost brought you guys a chocolate stout tonight.
That would have been great. I love chocolate stouts.
Maybe next time.
Yeah,
it's kind of a Warhammer beer.
You get no bonus points.
No, fine.
I actually usually when I'm at Gigabytes, I drink they have the I think it's Samuel Smith's or something chocolate stout. Nice. I drink that a lot when I'm there.
I'm just not a chocolate and beer person. Separately, but not together normally.
Well, chocolate stouts, you don't really taste chocolate.
I'll have to try one. I don't think I've ever tried one.
Yeah, they're really good. They are very delicious. I'm just drinking run-of-the-mill Heineken right now.
As a side note to all of your listeners out there, Beer Hammer may or may not be involving some beer.
Actually, usually we're drinking, or at least I'm drinking every single podcast.
He just doesn't share because he's not nice.
I mean, if you want, you can have a Heineken. There's one in the fridge. There's one left.
I'll share next time.
Last beer. You guys hear that offer?
No, it's not the last beer.
Well, you said it was the last Heineken.
The last Heineken.
Okay, yeah. So is it the last real beer, or is there other flavors?
There are other flavors, though we'd have to ask Rebecca if you can have one of those. Because they were her birthday present from Derek. So.
Dun, dun, dun. And Heineken goes really well with chocolate, by the way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, so the tournament thing was good. We go through kind of like, like I said, it was really cool. And then the third round, since everybody kind of petered out and got sick of it after 2 rounds, I guess, the third round, we just set up the Warlord Titan on the table, and then Derek and Matt and what was his name, Peyton?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Those three tried to take down the Warlord Titan, and of course Derek did it with his billion gene stealers.
A lot of gene stealers is usually a pretty good cure to most things Imperial.
Yep, Warlord Titan is very susceptible to melee destruction. It is somewhat unfortunate, but that is the case. Oh well.
Oh, well.
That's why you need knights to back him up.
And a whole lot of other guys on the ground instead of just a Warlord Titan.
Or
But
little guardsmen.
I did do some damage before I went down.
By damage, you wiped one of the armies entirely off the table in one round.
I don't think it was entirely. I think it was
when
it was
all you
most
have
of
left is a
its-
couple of dedicated transports, you're pretty much dead.
I mean, that happened.
Yeah, it's fine.
It was one round of shooting.
It is the Warlord Titan.
True.
One round of shooting from 6,000 points. Go figure it will
We'll
delete
wipe out
things.
2,000 points.
It
Yeah.
will.
So, upcoming new releases and such. The Wall of Martyrs thing came out. Advanced Team Star Pulse and the Necron Kill Team. Those all came out for Kill Team and all that stuff. And I believe upcoming this week on pre-order is the mini Warhound Titans for Adeptus Titanicus. That's kind of the only thing really notable.
Well, there's all of the commanders and the commander rules for Kill Team are coming out this week.
Oh, okay. That's actually
or,
on
or at least
pre-order.
they're on pre-order this week. Or,
Okay, I thought they were saying they were going on pre-order Saturday.
They will appear soon.
Yeah, I couldn't remember because I was checking and I didn't see anything on the new pre-orders pop up on that, but I know they announced that they are coming out, which is really awesome. I'll be excited to play Kill Team for the first time with 2 expansions out.
Kill Team is really fun. It's really fast. We've been actually doing that a lot over in our community, and a lot of the boxes are pretty much just repackagings, but the bang for the buck and the capability that it brings to the table is really cool. We actually got to open up one of the new Wall of Martyr kill zones over at the shop, and we're going to be using it as a demo table. It is really solid. I mean, there's a little bitty board, which is pretty much all the space you need for Kill Team. It can be played literally on your kitchen counter.
Right.
And Warhammer hasn't been anything like that in a long time.
Yeah, last time I did that, well, actually, we did that a little bit with Shadow War Armageddon, which I did not mind. It was a pretty decent game, in my opinion. A lot of other people didn't like it.
Very much the transition from the last edition to this one. So.
Yep. And I know that's coming out, and then trying to remember, they announced what else did they announce? Was it the new Night Vault?
Well, the Night Vault
Expansions.
actually, that already came. The main one already came out. They
Right,
have
right.
announced some of the other ones.
I know the Zarbags Gits and the Nine Eyes or whatever.
Yeah, and the Gits will be the largest faction for that game that has come out as of yet.
Cool.
So, which is it's a big thing you can play to if you've ever played that game. It's a very small game, very quick game, really arena grindy style, and having a whole lot of dudes allows you to control a whole lot of objectives, and that can rack up a whole lot of points real quick.
Yep, it sure can. I played Shadespire a good bit, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I mean, other than that, there's not a whole lot that I think has been announced from the GW end.
Well, I mean, it's October, so everybody's waiting for the one, the
Big.
only, the true thing.
The Orktober.
Dun dun dun. I mean, the new Speed Freaks, whatever. I don't even know the name of the board game. I just know it's Gorka Morka repackaged and ready to go wild.
I think it's going to be called Speed Freaks.
I think so. I just haven't paid that much attention to the name of the box. I'm like, ooh, look at their little models. I need them all.
They had little cars and stuff. I loved the commercial reveal for the plane car thing.
You can fly. Trust in yourself.
Yeah, and it has this whole motivational feel to it, and then it's like and then it shows the orc car. I'm like, oh, that's hilarious.
The only thing that makes me sad about that commercial is that I don't think it's on actual television, because it should be.
No, yeah, but it should be.
It straight up should be. It was the funniest thing that happened 10 seconds ago.
Right.
It was
right.
fantastic.
It was absolutely hilarious.
I mean, I can't wait for it. I mean, it's called Speed Freaks. Who wouldn't want to get that?
Literally, it's a big box. It'll probably have a modest retail value, but it's coming with a bunch of these little orc vehicles and everything from little buggies to dragsters and trucks, etc. So imagine a crud ton of orcs literally just running around and shooting the crap out of each other in their vehicles. That's pretty much all you need in life.
Sounds hysterical.
It's
I love
Mad
it.
Max in a box, but with orcs.
With orcs.
Yes, yeah. You have fungus-based monsters instead of Mad Max.
Nice.
I mean, fungus monsters. Oh, God.
That's what orcs are. Come on now.
Orktober.
They're
coming
they're
soon.
they're fungus beasts.
Mushrooms, happy, angry mushrooms, space mushrooms.
Space angry green mushrooms.
I can't wait for the box. I've gotten several of them already on pre-order. The community has pre-ordered a whole. Everybody keeps coming forward and wanting to get a whole slew of them, and I'm like, I don't even have a price from GW. They haven't even said it's real, except for some pictures. But other than that, real.
Right. But Orktober is looking to be really cool, and I am not an orc player. I love the orc lore. I love the look of the faction. I love everything about it. But I've never wanted to play an orc army or model any of them or play them in the game. However, I do think it's really cool, and I'll be excited for all my friends who like orc stuff that all the orc fanciness is coming out. But I don't really care.
I've literally was thinking the other day of how amusing it would be to just put like a couple of stompas on the table after they finally have real 8th edition rules.
Right.
A giant garbage can with lots of guns. It's an amusing thing. So
Yep. Derek and I actually played a game over here where he had his Gork and Mork mech guys.
yeah,
those
the
robots.
baby stompas.
And then he had his big Stompa.
Boom, boom,
And we had a
boom.
giant robot fight between the knights and the admech and his orc stompas, and I believe he won that one.
Wow, that's fairly impressive. I mean,
it was
the
it
orc
was
vehicles just
it was pre-Imperial Knights Codex, so
yeah, okay, that could make a big difference.
or no, it might have been right after, but I didn't have the list set up and I didn't use any of the stratagems. I didn't do any of the stuff that makes knights really good.
like harpoon guns.
I did. It was the Castellan. There was no harpoon gun.
You should have had a harpoon gun
I agree with
and a
Paul.
giant flamethrower.
Ooh,
You should always have a giant flamethrower.
I mean, honestly,
Always.
in that game,
in your
the
back
Valiant
pocket.
probably
Mhm.
would have ran a little better because it could have done more.
Yeah, with a giant harpoon gun.
Yep,
And a
and
flamethrower.
with the flamethrower, because I literally had the Stompa down to like 2 or 3 wounds, I think, and then he piled the like 30 boys that were in it out, and that was when things started going bad for the admech. Fourth World Megaton did not like that.
I believe it entirely. Oh, by the way, here's a bunch of orcs.
Yep. It was not keen and or fun. So, yep, that was that game.
You can hear the shame.
No shame. It was, like I said, it was a lot of fun. I always have fun. I think out of all the people that I do play, I think Derek is probably one of my favorite opponents. So, but because we pretty much always have fun whenever we play the game, because neither one of us really cares that much.
It's a very important attitude to have a lot of times, especially when like
Yep.
turn 1 can wipe half your army off the table, and you're like, "What? I didn't even get to go yet."
Right. So.
Sad times.
I did actually get to play a game with Cody. We did some teaching,
Hooray!
and I felt really bad for him because he came over. He brought us Space Wolves, and first off, he puts down like 1,500 ish, probably 1,200 points, and I'm like, we're playing a 750 point game. That's 750 points. He's like, yeah, and I'm like, there's no way. Let me check your math. I'm like, I don't really care. You can play with all that if you really want. I don't care if the game's balanced because I want to teach you stuff. But let me take a look. And unfortunately, he had done his points wrong, which he has always played with power level. So, switching from power level to figuring out his points was a little bit confusing, which I understood.
It's a big jump.
And I looked at his math and I was like, this is where you got confused. He was doing... he was basically going, okay, 5 to 10 models instead of points per model. He was points per 5 to 10 models. So he was way undercosting his
So he was
units and
literally
things.
power leveling the points value.
Right.
The exact same way they do it. Fantastic.
Right, which so totally understandable. And I taught him how to do the points thing, and then we got his list together, and then we played a game. And I was like, my thought was, okay, Space Wolves, kind of you're gonna have a decent amount of bodies on the table, even at 750 points. It's gonna be one of them armies you can do some things and assaulty. So I'll use an elite army with low model count because that'll make it that those generally do bad against kind of more the horde assaulty armies.
Yeah.
Unless they're custodes.
So his first learning game.
Again, first teaching game, he was playing against, the custodes.
So his first education game.
Yeah.
So what you actually did there is you didn't try to teach him how to play Warhammer. You didn't try to teach him how to play points. You didn't try to teach him any of that. You taught him how to be disappointed that he was playing custodes. They are literally made of win. Their armor is painted win. That's the exact color that goes on custode armor.
Well, and the reason for my thinking and the reason why I was that way is because every time I have played my custodes list in the past, it has been absolute garbage. I have done horrible with them.
They must have been shot in the face by las cannons or something.
When I played Lee in the Hobby League, he just trashed my custodes list in minutes. I mean, I was like, oh, okay. Well, I thought these guys would do a lot better than this.
Well, there's a difference between Space Wolves and Adeptus Mechanicus with 200 million shots is what Lee's list had or some shit.
No. He was playing Space Marines. It was the early games of the Hobby League, and I had a custodes list that I played through two of the games, and I bumped it up, and it was probably roughly, the last time I played it was probably roughly about 750 points because that was about what I was using, and it just got trashed. I mean,
I guess the real truth with custodes usually is just a few bad rolls because they really rely on that super armor save, that super feel no pain, just a few bad rolls, and you lose a dude, and every time you lose a guy, you lose 50 plus points.
Right. I mean, it is brutal if you start losing dudes.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was like, okay, cool, this will work. And then I'm like tabling the snot out of him, and I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. I didn't realize this would go this way because every time I've played this list, it's been garbage. I'm sorry. These guys are way better than I thought they were. We won't do this next Thursday.
All you have to do next Thursday is take something that'll make him feel good. That means piles of dead bodies. Orcs.
I don't have any orcs.
See, that's the problem.
It's not a problem.
It's Orktober.
It's not a problem. In fact, actually, I was sitting there telling Rebecca about my philosophies and theories on orcs. And I was like, I like orcs. I like the theory. I like the lore. I like everything, the background about them. I've just never really wanted to play an orc army or model or build or assemble an orc army. And I was like, something just doesn't really get me. So I don't want to do it. I said, now, if Derek showed up and was like, hey, I have this extra 2,000 points of orcs. You can have it. It'll be an army for you, an orc army. I would take it and play with it and enjoy, but I don't want to do all the work for it. And
it's a lot of orcs to pay.
Right.
Do you have Imperial Guard?
No. My guard list is Tempestus Scions for a reason.
You have you have a lot of Gene Stealers or Tyranids, don't you?
Well, there's one Tyranid detachment of Gene Stealer cult.
Yeah, Gene Stealer cults have a crud ton of neophytes and initiates. You could let him blow up all of those.
Yeah, I don't have them built yet.
Oh, sad times. Poor Cody.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have stuff that he can kill. Other Space Wolves. I have Blood Angels.
It's a lot of work doing one of the various Horde armies in the game, but I really love playing Horde armies, especially in the casual setting or the at-home setting or anything like that, because whereas at tournaments, I despise it. They are good, but I despise doing it because you go to the tournament, you have a time limit, and you're like, oh my god, let me move my 800 million little dudes every turn.
Right.
No, but at home, if you play something like Imperial Guard, even if you completely destroy your opponent, and I don't mean the tank regiment, because the tank regiment's a little different, but that guard regiment with 200 plus dudes on the battlefield,
right?
I could completely destroy my opponent, and they will have a great time because there will be a giant pile of dead guardsmen that they got to murder during that process.
Right.
So they don't feel like they were just like, oh, I got tabled immediately. No, they got to kill at least, 50 plus dudes on average.
Right. And so that's the thing is
can
I've
do
got I've got some other armies that, and I mean, he might just end up fighting, lower points cost to the AdMech because they're relatively squishy, and the Space Wolves would probably have a decent time trashing some Skitarii.
Well, especially if they get into melee.
Yep.
Yeah.
As long as I don't put the hoplites in there.
Even hoplites, I don't think. I mean, the bounce back ability and everything's solid, but it's not going to stand up to like a unit at 20 blood claws or something like that.
Which
likely.
he doesn't have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, his list was built pre-Codex, so it's mostly Grey Hunters.
Grey Hunters are good. They're not the melee kings. I mean,
No.
the ability to carry the guns, the crazy options,
Right.
being able to slap like one dude with a storm shield in there. There's some cool stuff in Grey Hunters, but there is some min-maxy stuff a lot of times that has to be done with Space Marines to
Make them good.
get them
Yeah.
where if you want to compete, but
Yeah.
again, you're just having fun, so it doesn't much matter.
Right. I'm not about competing. So, yeah, I'll figure something out that he can trash on and do well against.
Just pick something he can kill with bolter fire; it'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean that's probably going to be AdMech, honestly, because and then I just won't use a lot of the crazy stuff with it.
Yeah. AdMech are so much more squishy than they look like. They really are. They're still toughness 3 humans most of the time.
Yeah,
Those
the problem is when I play them and I'm actually using canticles and call and stratagems and things like that, they tend to be a lot more survivable than I would have ever thought toughness 3 things were. Because I played like back in the day during the early days of the Craft World Codex, I played against I played Tau against Aldari before everyone figured out about how really good Dark Reapers were.
Oh god.
And so it was a big Aldari list, and I literally just toughness 3 just ran roughshod over it with the Tau.
With your all of your strength 6 shots. Tau have so many strength.
Well,
6 and
I was
strength 7.
using Fire Warriors too, so it was I think their pulse rifles are strength 5.
So you're still wounding real well, even against their tougher units.
Yep.
So.
Yep. So it was what it is. So anyway, we'll figure out some squishy stuff for him, and get him learning some things. So that'll be fun. And then I think we were talking about doing the Apocalypse game in November.
We
at Vendetta.
we have a few different things. Well, so for starters, in November is actually Warzone Atlanta. So that's a big one right slap in the middle of November.
Right.
That's before Veterans Day weekend, I'm pretty sure. I'd have to check the exact dates, but either way, it's in November. It's Warzone Atlanta. If you've never been to Warzone Atlanta, you are definitely missing out. It's fun, man. They basically just rent out a whole section of the hotel, and everybody goes down and plays. And
yeah,
kicks around
I'll have
models
to
for the
figure out the
weekend.
dates because I definitely want to come down and maybe on a Sunday.
Well, one of the days they do an apocalypse event there, which could very well appreciate a certain Titan showing up and murdering lots of poor little victims.
If they do it on a Sunday, I can be there.
I think it's on the Friday before the main tournament, because Sunday is actually the last day of the tournament.
On Friday, I cannot be there.
Sad times.
Yup, it is
November 9th through the 11th.
9th through the 11th.
this
Okay.
year.
Well, yeah, because I know we were talking about potentially doing the APOC tournament towards the end of November
Yeah.
at your store.
That's where I still lean towards the end of November. We're going to see how many guys want to come. A lot of them will be hyped up after seeing us play and hearing about all of the 800 million battles. Yeah, the apocalypse is on Friday night. So
Yep, I cannot make that. And aren't they sold out on tickets or something? Or is that just for the main 40K tournament?
They sell out on tickets usually. Well, I don't know about for the side events, but I know for the main event they sell out on tickets usually before they even post.
Oh yeah,
the
it's
time.
the comeback kids.
Mm-hmm. It's one of the they like to call it one of the biggest parties in Warhammer 40K, and it really is. The guys are are really great. There's a great community. There's a lot of players that come out. A lot of guys come from all over the country, some from all over the world. And but that is, you talk about playing kitchen table Warhammer, casual Warhammer. Warzone Atlanta is definitely mean, gritty, grand tournament Warhammer. So, but it's still really, really fun. They make sure to keep the whole event super fun.
Well, that's cool. I definitely will. Like I said, I mean, if it's the tickets are just for like tournaments and stuff, right? And just for the events.
Yep.
I can walk in there.
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I definitely want to try and maybe make it down on that Sunday and just check it out because I've never been to one of those, and I've always wanted to go to like a big event, like I mean Warzone Atlanta. I may try going to the Nova Open next year.
Yeah,
I'd like to make that.
Considering that myself as well.
And depending on what business and shop status is for me, I'd like to be able to try and even plan on ATC with you guys next year.
Oh,
but
ATC is so fun.
I don't know if I'll be able to or not, but if I can, I will.
The team event aspect is a really cool aspect for ATC.
Yep.
One of the big things about Warzone Atlanta, I think, that keeps it really cool is normally their tournament structure. The first day of the main event, you essentially compete, and then the second day you go into these brackets that you compete into and whatnot, and it keeps it real
cool.
Really cool as far as all that stuff goes. You'd have to get all the details from them. I don't actually know all the details. I just like to blow stuff up and roll dice. So,
yep, which is totally cool. And speaking of blowing things up and rolling dice, we might move on into kind of our main discussion for the evening. I was thinking
chimichangas.
Chimichangas are delicious.
I mean, smothered in cheese.
So I love these breakfast burrito things that Rebecca buys. They're really, really good. That's like my breakfast, like every Sunday that I'm here, unless she makes something. And normally they're breakfast burritos. And then I was at the store with her, and taking me grocery shopping is like the worst thing in the world.
It's a kid in a candy store.
Because I want to eat this. And so we found the breakfast burritos, but they weren't burritos. They were breakfast chimichangas. I just about lost my shit. I mean, I was like, oh my God, it's breakfast chimichangas. Do you know what I need right now?
That twice.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think I bought 2 packs of them and ate 2 when I got home.
2 packs or just 2?
Just two chimichangas.
Oh, in a row?
Yeah, 2 chimichangas in a row. Not 2 packs. I'm not epic like that. I can't bring that level of fat kid to the table. But
we got it covered. Don't worry.
Well, I can definitely destroy some breakfast chimichangas.
Nice.
But anyway, moving on. We were going to talk about, especially because, I like to gear this towards new players, maybe people who don't know as much about the 40K universe, maybe people who want to learn more. And we've talked a lot about different armies and different things like that and different aspects of the game. We've talked about events and tournaments. We've talked about painting and putting armies together and how we do that. One of the things we have not had a really good in-depth lesson and episode on is the lore.
Oh, you're going to make us try to have our smarts.
Yes. This is one of my favorite topics because even in the times when I did not play much 40K, which would be, I believe, 3rd edition and then 6th and 7th. During those years, I didn't play a whole lot.
In the dark times.
And one of the things that kept me going was reading the books and the lore, and I'd even just buy codexes just to read through them.
Yep, codexes for sure. Yeah, even you don't have access to like Black Library novels or whatever. Codexes, they're so good.
Oh yeah, and so one of the things that a lot of people don't know because it is such a huge and diverse story is like I said, that lore, which has been developing for 30-something years now. 32, I believe.
The long times.
Yes. Well, I mean, of course, they had the ideas prior to it actually being released. But the original Rogue Trader book, I believe, was 86, right? It was 86, 86 or 87. So we're looking at, 31, 32 years of Warhammer lore piled on each other. And not only that, because I do want this to, like I said, appeal to people coming in and everything. I want to talk about how the lore relates to the sci-fi that was out at the time the creators were, growing up and being influenced by sci-fi and creating the universe of 40K, and how 40K lore has influenced stuff thereafter. Because there's a lot of things that I think are cross-pollination. Like, it's pretty well known and pretty darn obvious that Alien and the Aliens movies influenced the Tyranids.
Oh, I would have to say,
Yeah.
if the xenomorph or xeno whatever aliens are not the man, that's Tyranids, hands down Tyranids.
Right. And
Yeah.
while the life cycle is a little bit different in 40K, the end result of a Tyranid warrior looks a whole lot like a mini queen from Aliens. And so therefore, but then at the same time, I think the later movies may have been influenced by some of the stuff that was in 40K. Because initially they don't talk about, like, in further background stuff of the Alien universe, you learn that, when the face hugger grabs your face and puts an egg in you, the gestating alien actually takes some of your DNA and genetic code and it mutates the alien. That the chest burster is, has chunks of DNA from that. We see that in the Aliens vs. Predator movies, and it was in the comic books and the lore, probably around Alien 3 thereafter. That was the first time they really showed it in a movie. And so, but the Tyranid life cycle, they suck down the DNA and whatnot of whatever they're devouring as biomass and use it to adapt and manipulate their own stuff.
Especially the gene stealers. I mean, that's quite
Right.
literally what
they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
They literally steal your genes.
I remember the earliest memory
Levi's
I
a
have.
Wrangler.
Oh,
Right.
well, I
Absolutely.
would, Arizona's maybe.
Which one do they prefer?
I don't know. My earliest memory of seeing a Tyranid box that I can remember is literally
Mhm.
going to a local game store and with my dad. And the first box I ever saw was essentially this like combo box. There were Sisters of Battle and some Jungle Trees and Tyranids. And I was just like, I want this for Alien miniatures for D&D, Dad. And that was it. Like,
Done deal.
that's literally in my head what I saw when I saw them. I was like, these are clearly aliens, and it's going to be fantastic. But also, these ladies with flamethrowers are great.
There's nothing like hot ladies in power armor with flamethrowers.
There's that flamethrower reference again.
I like flamethrowers.
Me too. Me
Yeah,
too.
and
Who
nuns
doesn't?
with guns.
I think Derek is going to get one, by the way.
Oh yeah, he should.
A real flamethrower?
Yeah.
I was told I could get one. I just can't keep it in the house.
All right. Yeah, I can see that. Uh-huh.
No, I mean I'll probably just get one whenever I feel like it, and whatever. I learned too that you can literally just get there's a like it's a roofing blowtorch kind of thing that literally you can just modify a little bit and it'll make a flamethrower.
That'd be handy dandy in case we're ever attacked by Tyranids.
That's what that
Yeah.
big like $900 Elon Musk flamethrower was that he put out.
Nice.
It was just one of those modified.
just in case.
Yeah.
Tyranids. I mean,
Yeah.
which is reasonable. I mean, if everybody had flamethrowers, then our Overwatch rolls would be great. They'd
Right.
never get to us.
Right. So, that, like I said, we can see how that lore has cross-pollinated. Another thing too that's actually really cool in reading and doing some research over the past couple weeks is how much of the 40K universe was actually influenced by Dune and the Dune series by Frank Herbert.
Before you get too far off topic, do not forget to point out Aliens 2, the Marines. You cannot tell me that those are not
those are
Imperial
Cadians.
Guards.
Yeah.
Those are Cadian Imperial Guardsmen. And the ship, the drop ship,
Mm-hmm.
welcome to the Valkyrie gunship.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
hands down.
Which I mean, I don't. The thing is, we would have to reverse time to see what the Imperial Guardsmen miniatures looked like prior to Aliens coming out.
Yeah. No
To-
fingers
to know-
pointed at who
To
did
know
what
which
or where went
which
what.
way that
But
influence
when I
went.
watch that
yeah.
movie now, those are all Cadians getting on their Valkyrie to go and save those colonists. Clearly.
Right.
That is what I see now.
To ruin the Xenos threat. Yes, they are all very, very much.
And they have flamethrowers.
yep,
They
Nice.
they do have flamethrowers and the big hip fired gun.
do.
That looks. I mean, that's just like a heavy auto gun.
Gyro mounted heavy stubber.
Yep.
Splatter, splatter.
Nice. I like the Demonettes. what's his name? Slaanesh.
The demonettes,
Yes, those are my favorites. I'd like to know where they came from.
because they have lobster claws.
It's mostly because that and their outfit is kind of interesting. The little thing.
They aside from, I mean, because the main core story, the Emperor rising up, the Emperor unifying mankind, the Emperor, the Navigator guilds, all of that main core part of the lore. And for those who don't know, the Emperor of Mankind being this psychically powerful man who, started being worshipped as a god, said, "Don't do that. I'm not a god. There's none of those. Don't pay attention to this warp thing. There's no demonettes living in there that have lobster claws and weird boobies exposed.
Lobster claws.
Don't pay no attention to them."
Shaq.
That's from Revenge of the Nerds.
I mean,
Lobster claw. But anyway, the before any of that, he said, "There's none of that. There's none of that. Just don't worry about that. Just do what I tell you." And the mankind to travel through the warp relied on the Navigator guilds, which, it's a stable genetic mutation of mankind. It's like they were doing spice, then they popped out a third eye, then they stopped, and they didn't have to do spice anymore.
no, they had to live in spice after that, right?
Well, in Dune they had to live in the amniotic spice tanks, and like it talks about like some of the Moderatis and some of the stuff like that, and some of the like ship captains and things that are hooked up to the mind impulse units, like they're hooked in and they get kind of like almost like machine addicted, and they stay hooked in, and then they get put in amniotic caskets and things.
I think I've experienced that before. Machine addicted. I had this thing this one time. It was called a Nintendo Switch.
I still have one.
Oh, it's the devil.
I don't ever play mine.
So many buttons.
Yes, but that is so they were stuck in those things, and like it's very similar to all I could literally when I was reading the books, like especially Titanicus, and it talks about there's a Moderati in there that's like in an amniotic casket. It talks about him like moving out of the wall in his casket, like to look at the crew members and stuff, and coming up to the glass. All I can see is that scene from like the cheesy 1970s Sting Dune movie with like the weird brain bug in the thing, but it's actually supposed to be a human looking at people, and that was the scene that was in my head, was right there. And so that kind of stuff is similar, though there's no like specific mutated as badly as they talk about the mutating in Dune. There is that stable mutation that is the only way humankind can achieve faster than light travel. We have to rely on them. And then of course the Emperor, wanted to break away and control all that stuff and whatever, and keep mankind away from it. And in 40K, he wanted to open up the webway and be the controlling factor of the webway to usher and shepherd mankind into this new generation and age, or become a god himself, whatever theory you want to buy into. They've never cleared that up, but literally that overall story has a whole lot of elements from Dune borrowed heavily into it. And
especially if you read some of the older books or some of the older lore, like some of the old White Dwarfs and
Right.
stuff, things that just talk about the old Navigator guilds and the Navigator mutations, and the whole Navigator houses, the whole thing, and then the astropaths and all of that.
Yep.
Dune is definitely the two of them. There's definitely some cross influences.
I don't know how much any of the
I don't think
'cause
there would
Dune-
be influence from 40K to Dune, right?
right.
Because Dune's significantly old. But just in general, it's amazing looking at how similar some sci-fi universes can be and stuff.
Right. And the cool thing is you would never look at 40K and think Dune just openly.
No,
They did
yeah.
a pretty good job of kind of hiding a lot of it.
No, I mean, because Emperor in one sends his Space Marines out to the universe to conquer it, right? I mean,
Right. Oh, yes. And then the Adeptus Custodes of the Fatakin,
I mean, well,
But there's that, and then you also have influences from Judge Dredd. The Adeptus,
God.
the Adeptus,
Well,
which is the best pronunciation I've heard of it is Arbites. The Adeptus Arbites.
The Adeptus Arbites. They are
yeah.
hands down.
Judge Dredd.
Well, Judge Dredd, the old Judge Dredd miniatures were literally made by Games Workshop. I have some of them sitting in my house. It's Judge Dredd on
Right.
this horrible looking hover bike, and he cruises around
Right.
from the really old Judge Dredd comic books where the limbs were so long and thin, and everybody wore spandex because it's much safer in the world if we all have spandex, especially if Judge Dredd's around.
Right. And the Hive cities.
Hive City
The-
or
the-
mega cities.
Yeah,
I mean,
the Hive City, Mega City, all of that was like I literally, if you watch that movie Dread, it is like this is what goes on day to day life in 40K.
recycle.
Pretty much.
Just recycle them all. Shoot them with your bolt pistol and recycle them. It'll work
Right.
perfectly.
And
Judge Dredd, hands down. Gangs of Mega City 1, and then the Necromunda. I mean, so whereas Necromunda has quite a bit different flavor because it's specifically on Necromunda in Hive Necromundic. But the whole concept, gang warfare, Adeptus Arbites. Have you ever seen the Enforcer models for the old Necromunda game?
yes,
Those are gorgeous. But if you go even further back, there's a series of Adeptus Arbite models, and literally those units were led by judges.
one of my favorite Inquisitor models is the I believe her name is like Barbarella, but she's like supposed to be an ex Adeptus Arbites.
Yeah.
And her Cyber Mastiff. That's one of my favorite Inquisitor models.
Barbarella, the Space Queen
Well,
lady.
not
or
I
whatever.
can't remember what her name is, but it's close to Barbarella.
I
It's something like that.
The old Inquisitor Arbite models are fantastic.
Yep, the big ones, and then but yeah, those I mean totally taken from that. And then of course you get into the mythological influences of like Space Marine armor is totally the Arthurian legend fantasy armor turned into power armor, big giant pauldrons and stuff like that. And the Crusade helms and things like that look like old knight helms, and even the chapters, different various organizations of knights. And then you get into like, okay, Dark Angels. They totally ripped off literally the entire like Lionel Johnson like Primarch story is literally like, oh look, King Arthur.
King Arthur is here to save your world.
The problem is he's got dark secrets and not so many coconuts.
Well, I mean, either
But does
he's
he
clearly
got
the bad guy
crumpets?
or his
Right.
best friend's the bad guy. And considering that he's King Arthur, clearly his best friend's obviously the real bad guy, right?
No, maybe not.
No, you don't think so?
You never know.
I mean,
They-
one
they-
day we'll know.
They did throw in a twist.
The twist.
What a twist.
Little bit of a twist.
But so you get into that kind of stuff, and it keeps going. Like the rabbit hole is so deep on where all this stuff comes from.
But it's so great at the same time.
Oh yeah,
And the 40K lore, man, like I have entire groups of players and people involved in the community, and all they do, they will stand around and talk about the lore for hours on end, hang out the whole nine
debate
yards.
the lore.
And
Yeah,
unfortunately and fortunately, I will do the same forever and ever and ever.
Magnus did nothing wrong.
Magnus did absolutely nothing wrong.
Actually, yeah, he did. He did break the.
No, Magnus
Edict.
is a good guy.
I mean, he is a good guy, but he did.
literally warned the Emperor. He was like, "Hey, Home Slice.
He didn't get it
Turns
through.
out your favorite son gonna come back here and punch you in the D."
He didn't get the warning through, so he broke the Council
Except
of
for he
Nicaea,
psionically talked to him.
but not all the way. The Emperor broke the connection before Magnus can get the warning out.
Everybody knows that's the Emperor on his cell phone going, "I'm losing connection. Don't want to talk to you anymore."
Yeah, because he was mad because he broke the literally the Emperor's like, look at all my new wondrous toys, and then the big glowing head of Magnus shows up and blows up half the toys, and he's like, oh my god, and then throws him out of the palace psychically, and then he goes okay, and then he calls Horus, is like, hey, your bro Magnus, he just did something wrong, can you bring him back here so I can spank him?
Well,
I can't leave.
I mean, that's pretty much like every, that's a typical 40K dad, right?
Right.
You got a giant Warhammer army on your table. If you didn't teach the kid not to pick them up and smash them onto the floor, whose fault is that?
Right.
Not Magnus's, clearly.
Right.
If dad had taught him not to blow up all of the stuff when he psionically talked to him, or maybe just picked up the phone every once in a while.
You never know.
Maybe he was lonely.
But yeah, and because Horus had already turned traitor.
Now, I will say that new model, there's a lot of things that Magnus did wrong there.
Nipple horns.
Nipple horns. It's such a glorious model, but then. And I
Yeah.
understand they were going off the pictures from the 80s, but you know what? In like the 80s pictures, Magnus looks metal. Nowadays, he's just gorgeous. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that, except for nipple horns.
Yeah.
It's like clothes hangers, dude.
For some reason, I think I was really tired when I built my Magnus model and I modeled him with nipple horns, and I really want to get one that does not have nipple horns now to paint because nipple horns.
And they're actually modeled well. They're a fantastic piece. They're a fantastic part of the kit, the whole 9 yards. But oh gosh,
Yeah. I literally filed off the nipples on all my sanguinary guard and all that because I'm like, why would you have nipples on power armor? This is ridiculous. I'm not doing this. And
why? Thank you, Space Adonis.
yeah, I'm like, I'm sorry, but you
Space
guys,
Fabio.
you may be space vampires, but you're not vain idiots. So
Man, and what happened to Blood Angels being like straight up and up vampires?
right,
That used to be cool as shit. Nowadays they're like, well, they drink some blood and they get mad from time to time. No.
yeah, they're not quite as rude as they used to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember they were my favorite chapter growing up because in the Rogue Trader book, when I read like, yeah, there's these Blood Angel guys, they drink blood and stuff and rituals before battle. I'm like, oh, that sounds awesome. And they have fangs. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Yeah, like space vampires.
But with power armor and machine guns.
But they kill the crap out of everything they see.
But
I
do
can
they
buy
have-
into this.
Do they have flamethrowers? That's what we need to.
Oh, yeah. They
Yeah,
actually
they actually have
they
hand
actually have
flamethrowers.
not only that, they're the only Space Marine chapter that can take a specialized tank that is nothing but flamethrowers.
Yes.
Yes, the
Love it.
ball predator.
Excellent.
Flame for days.
And for some reason, all of their vehicles go faster. It might be because they're painted red.
Could be. Could be.
Probably is.
But there's that. And I mean, and
They
then you get
literally
into
have a rule that suits their vehicle speed up.
right.
But then they had that with the orcs too, right?
Well, it's a funny point because the Blood Angels have throughout the various history of 40K, they've had a lot of rules that have turned a lot of their tanks into fast vehicles because they've souped up the engines and whatnot. And the chapter's color is red, so naturally the vehicles are red. And so I think that's probably where orcs actually learn that painting your vehicles red does make them go faster.
Right?
I wonder if that's actually where they learned it from.
You never know.
Could
It
be.
probably is.
Well, we'll just say
Especially
this.
if they have flamethrower tanks.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. You were talking about influences of 40K, though.
I know I was, and I love the digression. It makes to me. No, honestly, it when we digress into weird crap, honestly, I think it makes everything more fun. No, what another thing, I really love the fact that like they have also piled in elements of history. Literally the entire grim dark, the gothic setting is literally like somebody went, what would the Dark Ages be like 40,000 years in the future? And
Yeah.
there you are. You have everything in the world looks like, hello, this is a factory where we produce safety pins. It looks like the Notre Dame. Oh, cool. Like everything is this Gothic cathedral looking thing. Here's our space battleships. They look like Gothic cathedrals. Oh, cool. That's awesome. I love it. And, and of course you can never have enough skulls.
Well, they've eventually realized 40,000 years in the future that the metal is the only true appropriate music. And from metal, you there learn that eventually you have to have Gothic and skulls and flames, right?
Yes. Everything
Or
must
at
be
least-
skulls.
At least I would assume that's probably what
Skulls and flying buttresses and flames and heavy metal.
Imagine if Warhammer 40K was not influenced from metal, but influenced from any other type of music.
Yanni,
I don't even know what
Hey.
that is.
I love Yanni.
you can't be on the podcast anymore. I'm just
you are
kidding.
banished from 10
Yes.
minutes.
And smoke bomb. Run away.
Yeah, it's what you get for cohorting with chaos cultists.
I mean,
Right.
between Yanni and Kenny G, like awesome.
Yeah, I mean, fantastic music, right?
None of
Sure.
that sounds awesome to me. Not a bit. Not one bit. I'm not sure what would be worse.
This is Warhammer 40K,
Yanni.
influenced by Orinoco Flow.
I would say I'm not sure what would be worse: a toss-up between Yanni, Kenny G, and Ed Sheeran. Those three are pretty much on my list of do not.
I don't know. I'd like to see how it would come out being influenced by Britney Spears
Mm,
or Justin Timberlake.
Slaanesh.
They would just all kiss each other and do drugs.
That's the Dark Eldar. Wait a minute.
No, the Dark Eldar wear each other's faces, do drugs, and kiss each other. There's another step in there not everybody's cool with.
Yeah, you got to take the medal for something, right?
Right? And that is actually another big influence, I think, in the 40K lore is the heavy metal movies and
Back
comics.
Then. Back then, yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, because of the kind of weird aliens and just various stories and literally I honestly think they did a wonderful job, whoever it was, whichever one of the guys sat down in the Rogue Trader days and said, all right, to create this universe, we are going to make a galaxy spanning empire, but we're going to have an unreliable system of communication, an unreliable system of faster than light travel that works 70% of the time, 90% of the time. And then we're going to have it be this cohesive imperium that has to self-govern itself so that each little sector and even down to planets and even down to moons can have different cultures. So we can literally expand this and put anything we want into it. And you can see how they kind of set that stage in the Rogue Trader book. And they set it for that further expansion. And it worked out phenomenally. And to me, it's one of the most richest sci-fi stories ever.
Well, you can virtually when you play, we do a lot of RPGs, and when you do any of the 40K RPGs, like playing the Rogue Trader game or the what was the other one, Open War, any of that.
Yeah.
I can't wait for Wrath and Glory. But when you play any of the Warhammer 40K Universe RPGs, literally just going to a different sector of the Imperium. And
right
over here, we actually have money and wealth and trade, and maybe there's rules and regulations, etc. Over here, you would like to buy 5,000 las guns. Well, that's going to cost you 50 Imperial Guardsmen.
Right.
I mean, literally manpower, or it's just such a significant difference in economies and cultures and styles.
Right.
And then, especially when you go from like this is a normal Imperial world where there's Imperial Guard and PDF and whole niners. Oh, but this is the Ultramarine space.
Right.
I mean, there it's literally Romanesque Greek society and stuff with these paragonical gods. The Space Marines literally walking amongst them.
Right.
And their entire goal in life is to either serve or become a Space Marine. So
right. And then you have other areas, the backwater medieval feudal worlds where, imagine Earth in the Dark Ages, and they don't even know the Imperium exists aside from the guy who's been, whoever's the governor basically, or the biggest power on the planet, he knows, and maybe a couple of his closest circle know, and they have limited technology and, very, very little. But otherwise, most of them don't even know about the Imperium as a whole.
Every 100 years or so, the Departamento Munitorum sends a big old boat over there to pick up a lot of shit-kicking melee fighters.
Yep, and that's it. They nobody else really knows, and you can have worlds from anywhere, any place, anyhow, and that's one of the things that makes it cool, and that's what makes like the narrative driven campaigns and stuff so cool is you can come up with anything and it'll work. I was reading some of the other stuff on the background and I can't remember, they were talking about actually where the stories of the Adeptus Mechanicus, where they came from and where they got the inspiration from them. And I can't remember all of it, but it was another set of stories in like the 60s sci-fi era, where it was, a priesthood that, just kind of kept everybody else ignorant and all that kind of stuff. And, even some of the other references were like Heinlein Starship Troopers, not the movie, but the books.
Yeah. Well, the movie, I mean, in the movie, the Starship Trooper uniforms, the basic mobile infantry armor, that is, at least for me, for most of my life, when I think of, Cadian Guardsmen, I think of their armor. Right. That's what I think of. That's what I think it looks like, in Real Boy world, as opposed to on my little miniature. I'm like, oh, clearly that is what a Acadian guardsman looks like. You know,
Right. And, so, I mean, and that was, they probably, the book influenced the game a little bit. Then the game probably influenced the people doing the movie. One of my other favorite influences to cite, which has actually been confirmed by director commentary, as far as I know and have been told. I have not seen it firsthand, but I have heard it enough times and read it enough places that I tend to trust it. Was Event Horizon, which was literally they, sat back and said, gravity drive, okay, this is mankind's first jump into the warp. And what happens? And if you watch that movie, that is an unshielded ship going into the warp.
They don't have a Geller field. That's the problem.
Nope. And yep, no Jello field. And this is what's left over afterward.
If only we had the Jello field, then we would be perfectly fine.
Right.
Otherwise, guess what? Hellraiser.
Right. Well, we're here on a search and rescue mission. Well, the entire bridge is covered in blood. Oh, goodness.
Please turn around and go home.
Right.
Cheese it.
Anybody got some sour cream and onion potato chips? That's somebody's organs. Tastes good. But anyway.
Chaos.
Yeah. And now ruinous powers. But no, and so it's really cool to like see that. And the more you kind of start thinking about it and the more you get into it, the more you start seeing those influences like everywhere, like, oh, that looks interesting. That looks interesting. That looks interesting. A movie that was directly influenced by 40K that is hilarious to watch. Ultramarines.
Turns out Ultramarines is a Warhammer 40K movie. I mean, completely influenced. But you could say influence, because, I mean, oh, God, that movie. There's some things.
I'm like, dude, I looked up, like, because when the movie came out, I'd heard, oh, hey, they're actually getting really good talent and voice actors for this movie and everything, blah, 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 blah. So, I got it. I watched it. I was like, oh, cool. Space Marines killing each other. Yay. And that was about the only interest was actually seeing stuff on the screen. But I was like, this movie's actually god awful. And then I went back and revisited it years later. And I went, this movie has gotten worse.
It's funny.
Because now it's aged. Yeah. And it's now worse to the point where it's somewhat funny. And then I looked up the various like voice actors and their careers and what things they've done. And those guys are good voice actors. Most of the people in that movie, I don't know what happened. I do not. Apparently, they were like
they made a Warhammer movie without a like. Warhammer just doesn't even need a rating. Period. It should just be not rated. I don't know what the rating on that movie is. Maybe it is not rated.
I think it is,
but it needs to be super not rated. There should be way more guts and gore and glory and firepower and the whole nine yards. I like the scene. It's both a horrible scene and an amusing scene to me, where in that movie they come to like this horrible, like the cliff of death or whatever, and the dude's like, "Well, I'll just jump over there," and you're like, "Wait, what?" And he's like, "I'm a space marine, bro." Boing, and he super jumps, and you're like, "Oh yeah, they're awesomely powerful and have power armor and can do things like that." Because you never think on the tabletop. You're like, look at these clunkety Marines that can barely walk. No, in the movie, they're just like, boing. They can literally jump all over the place.
Boing, boing. And then, there's also the other stuff like what was I thinking about? It talks about in a lot of the novels, like nothing that big and that bulky should be able to move that quietly with like the Marine power armor and stuff, and that they've learned how to be very stealthy and not do anything with that kind of stuff and just, all kind. And I remember there were a few of the other like novels that I read that like the Space Marines are like doing somersault flips through like bullet hails and all kinds of crazy weird stuff.
And ninjas are pretty terrifying, but when they're 8 foot tall and 2 tons, I mean, then that's a whole nother kind of ninja.
So, yep, I believe so. And I think on that, we might take our first little cut break here and come back and discuss some more lore.
Ooh, fancy.
Mm.
Yes.
Love it.
So, yeah, break time. All right, and we're back, even though you don't know any time has passed. But several minutes have passed for us. And we're all now hungry, thanks to Andrea.
You're welcome. Baked potato ice cream. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Apparently that's the thing. And apparently it's delicious.
But not an actual baked potato.
No, it's a baked potato made of ice cream.
Yeah.
So delicious. So good. Oh, my God.
She's still going on about it.
we literally just agreed to stop and go back to the show.
So what part of the ice cream baked potato relates to 40K?
The part when... No, I'm just kidding.
No, that was right. It was the fuck yeah and the justice. That was exactly it. I heard it all right there. Basically, you know that part where you're like, Emperor, that was it right there. I heard it. Because she said at the end it's smothered in homemade chocolate sauce.
It's what the custodes eat.
And that's pretty much how the custodes remain healthy all the time is by eating, ice cream baked potatoes.
Yes, exactly. If you do it, you'll be as healthy and ripped as a custode.
Yeah, just some minor genetic engineering.
It's minor.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Maybe
just,
Power Armor helps.
Yeah, just the tip. That's all.
No, I'm eating the whole thing. You put a baked potato ice cream in front of me, I'm going to eat that whole thing.
And you should, because,
Yeah, it sounds delicious. Anyway. So, going on more into influences, you can get into the specific cultural influences of various Space Marine chapters. Like you mentioned, the Ultramarines and the Romans. The white scars are very, Mongolish.
Mongol horde, but
Yes.
with motorcycles.
Right. Mongol horde.
It's literally the Mongol horde Space Marine faction with motorcycles.
Yes. Yeah, they're awesome. And... God, there's quite a few of them. Like even the Blood Angels themselves have a lot of influence from like Mad Max type, wasteland worlds and post-apocalyptic type things.
Your listeners can't hear it right now or see it. Well, they can hear it, but they can't see it. That is the ice cream baked potato.
Google it. You will eat it. You will want to eat the picture.
You probably will.
Yeah, because I want to.
That's my personal picture of the one we ate. Okay, I'm done.
Okay. We've seen what Andrea did for her hobby progress.
She ate ice cream.
Yes.
I give that an A+.
A baked tater ice cream.
I mean, right between all of your painting layers, you should have a baked potato ice cream.
You should.
Smothered in chocolatey goodness, topped with whipped cream, and all of the complete layers of F yeah that you need.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, anyway, blah, 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 blah. Thousand Sons, Egyptian.
Yeah. Mighty sorcerer Egyptian type dudes.
Yep. I'm trying to think of, some of the other influences I was going to think of. I'm not sure if like any of the older sci-fi like John Carter or anything really shows up too much in there. Or Princess of Mars is the actual novel.
A lot more of the... Well, so the Princess of Mars series, that is a huge series. And it's such a shame that in basically to the modern aspect, the only thing that they've seen is the John Carter movie and whatnot. And
right.
Because that is just such a big sci-fi thing. Like as a kid, I got to read them, and growing up, we got to read them a lot. And there are so many things in there. I'm sure that quite a bit of that has made its way or leaked its way into the 40K universe or back and forth.
Yeah, I think some of like the psychic mechanics and stuff, like from the priesthood guys, whatever they call themselves, that flip between worlds and things like that, some of that, and like it was all archaic looking stuff that was actually technological and different things like that. I think have shown up in it. I'm trying to remember some of the other, various different things that I've been like, oh, that's probably from that. And then I looked it up and it was.
And true story. It happened that one time.
True story. There's also a lot of Elric. The good old Michael Moorcock, Elric. Pretty much the Eldari are Elric mixed with the Lord of the Rings.
I mean, you got to have space elves.
Yeah.
If you don't have space elves, you don't have it. And actually, you were asking earlier, Andrea, where Slanesh comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Space elves. So in the way back when, in the far long time ago, the Eldar essentially ruled the universe after some small shenanigans that now may or may not have involved the Necrons.
Oh, no, they did.
And lots of other things. basically the Eldar scrogged themselves into oblivion. They got to the point to where, because they're elves, so they live for extremely long periods of time, and they became so hedonistic and so terrible that Slaanesh was literally born and started saying, you know what's really tasty? These Eldar souls.
Oh, wow.
So now in the current 40k universe, the Eldar literally have to trap their own souls inside of soul gems when they die, so that this god of chaos doesn't come along and be like, this piece of candy, piece of candy.
It tastes like an ice cream baked potato.
This is exactly what I was looking for to top my ice cream baked potato. It was your Eldar souls.
This Eldar chocolate sauce is amazing.
It's a mercy.
But yeah, that's and the actual the Codex Craft Worlds gives the reason why they became so hedonistic, which was because not only are they very psionic and long-lived, but they also, apparently the way their biology is wired, they literally feel things to a higher degree than most other sentient races. Like if they're sad, they're sadder than, a human. If they're happy, they're happier than a human. And so literally they're like super bipolar.
Yeah, right.
Or manic or whatever it is. And
super bipolar empaths. That's what it sounds like.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they literally were just like, we want to feel everything because we're done killing everything that's opposing us. And there is a race called the Old Ones, which were, potentially Slann.
Mm-hmm.
The Slann are the servants of the Old Ones.
Yeah, the Slann are servants.
Yeah.
Which are like lizards and supposedly created in the image of the Old Ones or something like that.
Giant wizard frogs.
Yeah, giant wizard frogs. And they basically created everything.
That's one thing that's really, really cool, actually. So one of the big things in Warhammer for years, there's always been this whole Warhammer Fantasy and Warhammer 40k are two totally different universes. Blah, blah, blah. Nuh-uh. Don't let them lie to you.
Well, they've stated with some of the Age of Sigmar stuff, they have alluded to there actually being like some kind of a cross pollination between the two.
Well, in one of the
like almost like Age of Sigmar is an alternate dimension, but happening at the same time, and the only binding factor is the warp.
Yeah. Well, so current Age of Sigmar actually happens in a multiverse kind of. There's like all the different parallel worlds. There's all the mortal realms and everything. So they go from like little pocket dimensions and whatnot, and they all battle over that and everything. But in old Warhammer Fantasy,
right,
the lizard folk, which are lizardmen, which are one of the factions, they worship the Old Ones. And the Old Ones are straight up and up from Warhammer 40k, and they made all of these warrior races, and Necrons came kicking the door in, and so there's definitely some cross influences there. I mean, not to mention like the very first sci-fi thing for Warhammer was literally the Slann army in Rogue Trader, like on your 10 fingers count number. I don't know which episode, but one of the very early White Dwarfs had a Slann army, which was basically like, and just because you need it, here are frogmen with laser guns from Stargate to blow up your enemies in your elf-dwarf battle.
Nice.
Right. And of course, the long bereaved squats.
Those poor defenseless squats.
Sci-fi dwarves. They used to have them, but then the Emperor decreed that the genetic mutation wasn't stable enough or something, and the whole entire race was exterminatus. And now we only know that there is the only references to squats I have heard is the one bounty hunter in Necromunda, they just recently brought back, and then the one shipmaster in the Eisenhorn or Ravenor series. He was Ravenor. He was Ravenor.
I haven't read the part where they said the Emperor said Kerput to the squats.
That was the old thing.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know if he really did or not. Because it was probably the High Lords of Terra.
I mean, what pretty much actually happened, right, is that the god of dollar bills said that the squats weren't selling enough or whatever, apparently.
Right, apparently.
So, of course, that same god of dollar bills hasn't remade Sisters of Battle since, like, the 80s.
So what you're basically saying is that he only gave 2 squats.
Yep. No squats for the squats.
I mean, I was just asking. Is one of them named Diddley? I mean, it could be.
This is getting painful.
Space dwarves.
I have been told that my silliness is painful.
Yeah. It hurts. But yeah, the and that was because I think another reason too that I heard behind the scenes reason was to try, and because people were saying, oh well, every race in Warhammer Fantasy has a race in 40k, and they were like, not anymore, squats are dead.
I pushed the big red button, and it so longer is not that.
Right.
No, change of plans. Yes, lizardmen in Warhammer 40k would be great.
Yeah.
So would
it be.
beastmen again.
Right.
I say
And-
again because technically they are an abhuman race that is recruited and used. So
Right. Ratlings.
no,
Skaven.
actual beastmen, straight up
I
and
know.
up, are one of the various approved races by the Emperor, right?
Yeah, they were in the original, I believe, Rogue Trader.
Yeah.
And then Ratlings. Yep. Gotta love the Ratlings. Gotta have Skaven.
So you gotta have somebody to at least hunt the real Skaven down. And oh my god! And if you thought about that, Skaven are now demons of chaos. So Skaven are rat folk, and they're from Warhammer Fantasy. And basically, for a bazillion years, the Skaven are mutated from Weird Stone, which is basically chaos imbued rocks that fell out of the sky.
Yep.
And they worship the Great Horned Rat and all this other good jazz. Well, long story short, in the end times of Warhammer Fantasy, where the world blew up, the Skaven's god, the Great Horned Rat or whatever, has taken it, or has become one of the big King Kong gods of chaos. So
Right.
Skaven themselves have become chaos, even though, whereas before they were always kind of warped by chaos or tainted, but they were straight up and up just like one of the races of the world. So now these rat folk are literally chaos. So you could just imagine Skaven in Warhammer 40k.
So we're and that's absolutely, I got to get my hands on some of these things and start getting in there. But where did the demonettes come from? Like, why are they there, and why do they have crab claws?
Well, they have crab claws because poor choices were made. No, the demonettes are
Modeled after a bad Tinder date.
the. I don't think Tinder existed in the back then.
I think you catfished me. You didn't show the lobster claw in the picture.
But I'm here just for your love. Clack, clack, clack. No, the demonettes are basically the rank and file, the infantry, the main demon soldiers of the god Slaanesh. So, as far as where they come from, they don't really. With a lot of them, they don't get into specifically like, oh, this demon is from here and that demon's from there. They're just chaos. They're bad.
I mean, honestly, probably a lot of the influence of design would have been from mythological sirens, mermaids, those kind of things that were, because anytime you encounter a demonette in the lore, people will hear their lover calling to them or something like that in the midst of battle, and they'll get mesmerized and they'll go towards it, and it'll appear as a beautiful woman. And then as they close within, lobster claw reach, what happens is the demonette then shows her true form. And, even after she sheds it and she's showing her form as this clawed and weird kind of bestial woman thing, they're still kind of like, well, she's still kind of hot. Maybe this could work. Maybe
Maybe this could work.
What you mean to say is they're still men.
right. Maybe I'll get her digits, and in 3 days I'll call her. I'll wait 3 days.
She has no digits. She's got a claw, man. It's a claw.
and
It's
then
no
snip
digits.
you're in half.
I mean,
and-
yeah.
Right.
So they're space mermaids, but they turn out to be secretly crabs
Well,
of death.
and kind of sirens also. That
Yeah, I mean, when we were reading some of the lore
Yeah.
a couple of days ago, and the way that I saw them, I was like, well, are they supposed to be derived from his objects of desire? Like, that's his lure for everyone else, is what I was thinking. So,
I mean, kind of, but they appear as that because Slaanesh, born from the hedonistic tendencies of the Eldar, when he was born, it created the Eye of Terror. It created the Old Night, which was when the Imperium of Man, prior to the Emperor hadn't really risen up yet, but the humankind had created this galaxy-spanning empire. And then Slaanesh is born, or they'd started colonizing. Let me say they hadn't created the empire yet because they hadn't really encountered the Eldar.
Humans weren't important when all of that happened.
Right. They were important, but they had started colonizing and creating an empire. And then Slaanesh was born by the Eldar in their homeworlds, which was luckily pretty far away from Earth. And when it happened, it ripped a tear in reality that literally you could literally just be like, oh, look, it's like where the state line is drawn.
Right.
And you could be like, I'm in Kansas. I'm in the state. I'm,
Right.
whatever.
He says that because he doesn't know what's next to Kansas.
No, I don't. I was going to say Nebraska,
Me
but I don't
either.
think Kansas really butts up against. I don't know.
It would have been it is a warp portal.
Right.
You could have been like Kansas, Canada.
Right.
Perfect
Nice.
opportunity.
Works for me.
Yeah.
And that reminds me, I wonder if like you said, sometimes Warhammer influences other things. There's some sort of reference to that in Supernatural about tearing a hole, and you can literally just walk through the little.
Well, Supernatural's made in Canada, and they play a lot of Warhammer.
Oh,
Yeah,
there you
yep.
go.
A
There you go.
lot of Warhammer.
And so they very well may have taken that, which yeah. So we're
but
not
don't trust
going
me
to
on
go
that.
down the rabbit hole of Supernatural because I've just started finally watching it.
Oh, okay, yeah,
And,
no.
and all I'm doing
Let us not
because
spoil it for him.
because
Oh,
of
yes.
my other nerdy hobby studies and things, all I'm doing is going, yep, that's wrong, and that's wrong, and that's wrong, and that's wrong, and that's wrong. I'm not going to think about what's wrong. I'm just going to enjoy this. And that's literally because it is a good show, but yeah, they kind of screwed the pooch on a lot of things.
Definitely a good made-for-TV show for sure.
Yes, it is good.
Yes. And
But-
Castiel is easy to cosplay. That's one of my characters.
Well, yeah, but
And
if,
I put on a coat. Done.
but
Exactly.
If
And a tie.
if you try to, if you ever encounter anything supernatural, and you try to do any of the things they do in the show to combat it,
Oh yeah.
it's not going to work.
Yeah. No.
Anyway,
No, you have to use a flamethrower.
yeah,
Yes.
flamethrowers.
Flamethrower
The
for
Emperor
sure.
told me.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
Um,
And have a demonette.
Yeah, that-
Catch all. Works
No.
every time.
I don't
Yeah.
know if you want that.
What?
Um,
You don't use your personal demonette with a flamethrower to smite all supernatural
Exactly.
things you come across in life?
not normally, no.
Oh.
no.
I would.
I had mine on
That's
speed
my
dial.
thing.
I don't know what
I
you're
know.
talking
Yeah.
about.
It's number 5 in my phone.
Yo, first, get over here and take
No,
care
her
of
name
this.
is Lola.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Paul,
Don't lie to me.
there's a point where we get to TMI.
I call mine Delilah. I mean,
See?
what do you want?
You guys and your weird Japanese anime demonette body pillows. I don't want to know about.
Flamethrowers.
Flamethrowers.
Smiting the supernatural.
Is that what we call them?
Yes.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right, but
Just like breakfast to Giants.
But as I was saying, when Slaanesh was birthed, it created these warp storms where nobody could travel through the warp. Humankind couldn't contact their colonies. Everything was separated. Everything was in chaos. The Earth itself, fractured into barbarism and all these different colonies or clans and territories and things. And that was when the Emperor basically said, all right, I'm going to put it all back together. I'm going to create genetic super soldiers, and we're going to make an awesome imperium for everybody. And he said, let's destroy everything that's not human. And they started doing it. And, once the warp storms kind of abated and everything after, it was, I can't remember how long Old Night actually was supposed to have lasted.
The way back when.
Yeah, way back when for way back long. And then there were, there was, 200 years of Great Crusade?
I've been here.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, the Great Crusade was about 200 years, and then the Horus Heresy itself was like close to, I think, 25 or 50 years or something. Their timelines are a little goofy because of the warp. But that is what it is. But yeah, the Horus Heresy takes place over quite a few years, and but all of that is literally, so much of that is taken from various spots of mythology and whatnot. But Slaanesh, when created, because of it was all the Eldar's desires and hedonistic tendencies and stuff that was thrown into the warp, which is a dimension of nothing but emotion and desire and different things that all sentient races are feeling and have felt, because there is no time. So anything that happens in the future can still be present in the warp or have a shadow or light in the warp. At the same time, anything in the past still has, like they talk about in the Emperor of Mankind novel, they actually talk about the Adeptus Custodes in the the first city that they encounter in the webway, in the portal that's under the Emperor's golden throne. Going into the webway where he was planning on taking humankind into the webway and starting to create, these webway junctions for humanity and taking it over. As they're trying to hold this city for the Emperor's great project, the Custodes are beset upon by a demon of the first murder, which is, a direct reference to Cain and Abel, back in, and it talks about, the first murder from ancient human tribal society. And this demon was born of it in the warp. And so just like the demon was born of it, Slaanesh was born of this. And so all of the Slaanesh demons are all about that. It's like an obsession, addiction.
Slaanesh is literally the god of excess.
Yeah.
So it's pretty
Excess.
much,
Yeah.
it's not, any one thing. It's like an excess of all things, basically.
Right.
So,
Anything, like hedonism, drugs, food, whatever you can go nuts about, even, sexuality and pleasure, and then beyond pleasure into the pain aspect, which is why everybody's like, oh, so that's BDSM. Well, he's a lot more than that. There's a lot more to it than just that.
Yeah. When I first read it, now granted I know nothing except for what, my own thoughts were. But when I first read it, I was like, was this inspired by Aleister Crowley? It reminded me a lot, you know what I mean? Because I read like some of the things that he was saying to his, to the people that he was going to eat the souls for. And I was like, wow, I'm in.
and we know who drank the Kool-Aid.
Right.
Right. And
drink the Kool-Aid.
and there's no saying it couldn't have been,
Yeah.
because honestly, unless you find, commentary or director's notes or designer's notes from somewhere that says, hey, we specifically took from this, it's all up to conjecture.
Right. It sounded like Satan with a capital S, if you ask me. I was drawn in. I was like, whoa, that totally feeds into all of your addictions and
Right.
things that you want to do.
Which is what, Crowley was about.
Yeah,
As long as it didn't hurt anybody.
Yep.
You were talking about a lot of the like the crossover influences and similarities. I know it's a beautiful book.
I have in my hands right now the original Rogue Trader, and the binding is still pretty good.
Still functions.
Yeah, it still functions. It is still bound in there. All the pages are there. You can still see the original layout of a Space Marine Fortress Monastery.
Mm-hmm. There's so much fluff and lore in the.
Yep.
It's even more in those old books.
I love the old dreadnoughts.
Nice.
Yeah, I have to go when I get home. I'll have to go look and see if I can find mine because there's so much nostalgia factor in there.
Yep, original Tyrannid.
Yep.
That's a good old Hormigaunt. They haven't changed much other than the fact they put carapace on them.
It's no longer a salamander with a gun.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were talking about older or cross-reference influences and stuff. So when you talk about humanity during the dark times in the Warhammer universe, where essentially humanity spread to the stars, things were going great, etc., and then all of a sudden someone said click, and they could no longer communicate, they could no longer talk, they could no longer travel through space at faster than light, etc. There are some similar instances.
Original Gene Stealer artwork.
Oh God,
Ooh.
yeah, that's a whole nother ballpark right there.
Wow.
Original
Yeah.
Gene Stealer. There are some similar universes that have things like that. So one of the big ones is BattleTech. Actually, in
Right.
BattleTech, you had a Comstar. There is this huge scenario where Comstar is essentially the organization that handles communication. And I can't remember honestly if I'm saying the right name or not, but I'm pretty sure it's Comstar. Handles all the communication between planets and whatnot. They were literally the cell phone company of the stars. And there's a point in time where Comstar is shut down, half destroyed, defeated, etc. And that is just a huge rending event in that universe. And then another one is I haven't read a whole lot of it, but like the old Traveler universe. In the Traveler universe, you literally have humanity like spread to the stars and stuff, and there's the old like you're literally going around. I don't remember what they're called, the League of maybe the Star League or something like that. I can't remember
what it was. I played a decent amount of Traveler, and I cannot remember what it is.
There was an organization that literally was like, we're going to explore the stars and colonize and all this other stuff. And I don't know what the storyline is. I can't remember, but the storyline, they go kaput. They're no longer there. And one of the things you can do, like a whole campaign about, is literally going out to the stars for the first time and being like, hey, wait, those Starleague guys were here a few hundred bazillion years ago. Okay, it'd be more like 20 years ago, but whatever. So, the warp
Yep.
is terrible. But the scale of Warhammer 40K, that's something that always gets me.
Right.
Most sci-fi universes, when they think about them and you go, oh, space is so big, this universe is so big, you always get the old this universe versus this universe or that one versus that one conversations that come up all the time. And one of the things is scale.
Right.
Most of the Empire in Star Wars is X big.
Mhm.
The Federation in Star Trek is X big. And those are popular, very popular sci-fi universes. A lot of those compared to the Empire of Mankind in Warhammer 40K are literally an infinitesimal small joke because the Empire of Mankind in 40K is 100 million worlds
It is ridiculous.
or whatever.
It is countless. Literally everything I've read is countless untold
Yep.
worlds.
Yeah, because it's like a world gets destroyed and they're just like, oops, my bad.
Yep. Whole
It's a good thing we have 40 more right around here.
The best illustrative thing for that is actually in the Last Chancers novels, and I can't remember if it's the second or third one. I think it's the second one, and they go on a kind of a secret mission to talk to the Tau.
That's a good choice.
Yeah, and so they have this guy who's penal battalion, rough around the edges, but he's trying to be a secret agent kind of thing, and he's at this state dinner. They're pretending to kind of be rogue traders or whatever, and talking to these Tau water cased, and the Tau water case is like, oh well, our main city of Tau on our planet Tau is so many million souls and blah 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 blah, and he's like, oh really? He's like, our hive cities are 13 kilometers in diameter, 13 kilometers high, and 13 kilometers down. And they hold over 13 billion people.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if those numbers are exactly right. I'm just fixating on 13 because it's fun. But he says that, and then the Tau ambassador's like, and you have how many of these on a planet? He's like, 4 or 5 per planet. And how many planets are in your Imperium? We don't know.
Oops.
There's that many. And the Tau are like, oh, maybe we'll be careful about poking this badger with a stick.
Yep.
Holy crap. There's a lot of people.
Turns out humans. Damn parasites.
There's a whole lot of them. Uh-oh. Crapola.
It's insane the
Right.
scale of things. Like when they talk about one of the coolest things is in the lore of the Warhammer 40K universe when they talk about and there's a lot of World War, obviously trench warfare influences a
Right.
huge amount of Warhammer 40K. When the Imperial Guard fight on a planet, they don't fight like, oh, the front is here. No, it's legitimately they will stretch an entrenchment line along an entire continent
Right.
with literally millions and millions and millions of guardsmen on these lines.
Oh, I mean,
it's insane.
Yeah,
the scale, the scope.
illustrative from the novels.
Yep.
They talk about in the Gaunt's Ghost novels. There's one of the later ones where it's like one of the guys that they in one of their battles they find this kid and he kind of becomes a hanger on of the regiment. He's taken care of by other people that are hanging around the regiment and stuff, and he eventually joins the guard and gets trained. And it talks about him going through boot camp, and then he finally ends up getting deployed, and instead of getting deployed with Gaunt's regiment and all that, it's several mixed regiments that are showing up at this battlefront on this planet.
Yeah.
And so they just kind of go, okay, everybody who's in training battalions, you're going down there and you're getting put where we put you. And so he's with a whole entire different guard regiment than the Ghosts, and they literally just drop these guys down in front of this giant chaos fortress. And he's talking about how they're climbing over the dead bodies of their comrades to get atop these walls. And then you realize that as they're talking about the walls and everything, and you start thinking about the terrain and the size of the terrain, the walls of this thing are probably about as tall as a Imperial Knight. So we're talking like 5-6 stories worth of dead bodies. Like that they're climbing up to get over the
I mean, how
walls of
else
this
would you
fortress.
naturally get inside the fortress?
Right. You just climb over the bodies of
mean,
your comrades.
seems-
Enjoy.
Seems legit.
Who doesn't do that?
Sounds like Tuesday to me. Siege Warfare 101. More guardsmen. Wave after wave of my own men.
Siege Warfare 102. Fix bayonets.
Fix bayonets before climbing. That way your body sticks.
Right.
Yeah. Gives you something to really hold on to as you go up.
Right. But I mean, and you're right. I mean, and that scale, and I love. There's somebody who made an illustrative graphic, and I guess they found, different things about the scale of various sci-fi starships, and you see like Vader's Imperial Grand Star Destroyer, and it's like on the graphic, it's so long, and then it's like Gloriana class Imperial battleship, and it's like 8 times the size of the biggest Star Destroyer the Empire had. You're just like, holy crap.
And some of those Star Wars ships are miles long.
Oh yeah.
Literally miles. Like, I mean, there are instances when they talk about like boarding actions or getting across ships in some of those shows and stuff where it's such a large scale event because just for a squad of individuals to walk from one side of the ship to another, it's nigh impossible. They have to use lifts or some form of transportation because you're never going to cross it. I had we did an RPG based on one of the rough interior details of one of the Imperial not Star Destroyers, the Imperial battleships for Warhammer 40K. We literally ran an entire campaign for 6 months with games weekly inside of a single ship.
Oh yeah.
And it was insane. Like, it's just the scale and the scope of things because there's whole cities in these ships.
Right.
Like, literally entire cities.
Well, and you get into the Mechanicum Explorator fleet ships.
Oh God.
Like I
We're
remember,
gonna take we might need a planet. Let's take one with us.
right? And literally, and I remember
Put it in the
reading-
trunk.
I can't remember what book it was exactly, but it was where literally they take an Explorator fleet with a few other Imperial starships out there. And it's this, big old Mechanicum Explorator ship, and they're talking about this thing, and they're like literally like it is. I can't remember what they said in the book, but it was like between 20 to 30 kilometers long.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's literally so gigantic. And they literally say in there are tramway shuttle systems running through the ship so you can get from part to part of it. Otherwise you can't. There are like four or five like entire like manufacturing districts, not just like a manufacturing building. A whole district
Yep.
of, we make the bolts for bolt guns. We make the screws that go in the bolt guns. We make the bolter plates, and all that. And then, okay, so they're literally building everything they need for their ships, everything they need for their power armor, everything they need for war material. They can literally make all of it in this one ship. And then the fleet consists of, like 20, 30 ships.
I like to think of, if you've ever seen it, one of the big ones that it always brings me back to when I think of me personally, Imperial ships in Warhammer 40K, they talk about like there'll be like the population areas or the districts inside the ships. If you have ever seen, and most things don't show that impression, Robotech.
The SDF one. Yeah.
In the original Robotech series, they literally, show the interior of the ship. They have flat up a city inside of their ship. And it's not just tunnels and hallways and etc. And that's the way when I imagine a lot of times personally, like hive cities or some of the sub levels, not the really, obviously not the lower ones. They'd just be terrible, bad places. But like you can imagine like some sub levels of hive cities or some of the interior areas. Crew quarters wouldn't just be like, here's a long hall with a million little rooms. No, here's a city with straight up fully operating bars and restaurants and the entire functionality of the population. There will be population on these starships to support the population that runs the starship, numbering in the tens, if not hundreds of thousands.
Right.
Entire generations living, born, dying on these starships.
Right.
They are insane in scale and scope. And you talk about like basic training for the army, for the Imperial Guard. I mean, most of the time that basic training is we're here to pick up a bazillion guardsmen. They get on the boat. They get 3 weeks of training on the boat. They get off the boat.
Right.
And they're just dropped in it. Like,
it talks about like, they're in a small like troop freighter class starship.
yeah.
And it talks about how they're literally doing several
Small, 4.5 miles long.
Right, literally, and that's what they're saying. They're doing circuits around the ship as part of their training, just running with full gear. And it talks about how it's several miles long, and the drill instructor's kind of like running along with them. But he's got various of the Navy armsmen like positioned along the place, and if they don't see the recruits come by, then they start going after them and stuff. Like it's crazy just to start thinking about. And when you start thinking about it, because I was like, when I first started reading some of the 40K novels, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it's this dude and this dude. And then you start realizing through things that they're inferring that, no, it's the sergeant with a 10-man squad and then another 10-man squad and another 10-man squad and another 40 guys behind them that are all moving through this area. And it talks about them moving into like a building, and you're just thinking, oh, it's like an apartment building. No,
it's like a prefab. It's
Yeah.
literally the block complex. You were talking about the new Dread movie.
yeah,
That is
it
an apartment building
gigantic.
in Warhammer 40K.
Right,
You go in, and it's like a single apartment building is a city into its own. It'll have shops
Right.
and the whole 9 yards and everything.
right,
And that reminds me, I really like that style. That reminds me of if you think of like the old Roman apartments, the
Right.
insula, they would kind of be built in that, that usually rectangular.
right. They have a
or,
plaza in the middle.
and they'd have like a plaza in the middle. They would have their own shops and their own whole 9 yards, kind of like little self-sustained communities.
and bathhouse.
And bathhouse.
That's where Slanesh hides. Boop, 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 boop. I poked you in the bum with my lobster craw.
Crawl. Bolt of fire.
Clickety clackety.
Time to be recycled.
But we just got on a Logan's Run, which probably influenced 40K too. Who knows?
Yeah. You talk about like movies influencing 40K
Yeah.
or vice versa. Imagine just the video games
Right.
back and forth. And much less how many 40K video games there are, but other games where so I remember in the much younger years, there's one particular is StarCraft.
Yep.
You literally
Which-
open the old manual for StarCraft and like the little concept art for the Tyranid. You're like, look at that Homagot. The Zergling's about to go eat the Marine, and it's literally here's a Space Marine.
The Space Marine with slightly different shape to the armor.
He may
And
may not have a
the-
Buzz Lightyear helmet.
There is a lot of speculation on that as to there was people saying that GW contracted Blizzard to make a Warhammer and Warhammer 40K related video games, and then one or the other broke out, or they mutually broke off the contract, and then Blizzard took it from there and did this and did that.
Changed the Eldar into Protoss, and
Yeah. There was a certain thing where it was one of the Tyranid units. There was actually a legal battle between GW and Blizzard.
oh wow, was that? I didn't know.
It was like the Cerebrites or Cerebrites or something. They were in StarCraft 1 and they did not reappear in StarCraft 2 because GW said nope. Which
Oops.
I am really, really, really happy and glad at the 90% of the direction that Games Workshop is going in right now, because prior to 8th edition and a year or so prior to 8th edition coming out, honestly, there was so many things that GW did as a company, one of which being suing the pants out of anybody who so much uttered Warhammer 40K, that just got on my nerves, because I'm like, you literally took
This is Eric going for that ever elusive cease and desist.
right.
This is how you know you made it in the podcast universe.
Right. If GW contacts me and says, if you never say another thing like this ever again, we will give you free stuff and always say good things about us, I'll definitely think about it. As for anything else, I mean, go ahead, send me a cease and desist. I'll laugh. But the whole point is that they literally were suing the pants off of anybody and trying to sue the pants off of anybody that so much as like uttered, Warhammer 40K. So much as their online retailers and stuff, they were like, "Oh, you can't use our box art. You can't post pictures of our product on your website." And it was pretty darn ridiculous.
It's a bit extreme, of course.
Yeah. The level they took it to was a bit. I was like, "That's actually you're getting counterproductive now. Like this is not just protecting your IP. This is absurd." And then they've luckily stopped a lot of that, and I've been really happy that they have because things like Inquisitor Martyr, which is a fan based CG movie that is the guy's been working on it for years. And if you search, or not Inquisitor Martyr, Lord Inquisitor. That's it. Inquisitor Martyr is a video game that's kind of the Diablo-esque. Kind of
where everything gets blown up.
Right.
With flamethrowers?
Yes. I think you can get a
haven't
flamethrower.
actually seen the flamethrower in that game.
I think you could get one.
But you can legitimately, you'll be like, I'm going to hide behind this thing. And then you get shot at, and that thing explodes, and there's no longer something for you to hide behind.
Yep.
Oh, well, too bad.
But the Lord Inquisitor, if you search that on YouTube, and that guy was doing that for a while, and GW kind of found out about it and eventually saw it, and were like, cool, carry on. And the same thing with, I believe it's the Adeptus Astartes or whatever, something like that. There's another one that's kind of the same line, where a guy produced these little clips of stuff, and GW was like, "Oh, cool! Glad you're doing that. Keep it up."
There's actually quite a few. If you look hard enough, there's quite a few different fan made Warhammer 40K, or at least highly influenced Warhammer 40K movies, especially on YouTube. I remember watching one a long time ago where basically they had they straight up and up had one of the characters in it was one of the dudes from Doom Troopers from the old Mutant Chronicles.
Right.
So that's a universe that shares a lot of. There's some stuff between those two. Some bleed over there. You can tell. It's always fun to speculate and look at
right.
Oh, what is this? Oh, that reminds me of that. I guess the problem there is it's from our perspective, right?
Right.
So
we don't know.
What did you see first? Because what
Right.
you saw first is what's going to go.
Right.
Oh man, that's straight up and up that. So
That's why I always try to research dates and things on stuff because you never know, and you never know too. Even with researching dates, I've found certain things, remakes of songs, things like that. Just in general life, I've found things I'm like, oh no, this came before. And then I've researched it and been like, no, actually it did not. Wow. Okay. And
you don't want to shame any of that. It's more of a, hey, that's really cool. That's where it's influenced from. That's
right.
That's what built to this, what came to that. So.
Right. But it's really cool to hear all that stuff and see all that stuff. And I hope our big giant lore discussion has definitely piqued some interest. And
well, now you're probably going to get a bunch of questions. People are going to be like, hey, you guys didn't really talk about a whole lot of lore. You just kind of meandered around. Can you tell me the secrets of such and such? And we'll be like, no, snots are not important.
No, snotlings do not matter.
There will be no more discussion of the grots. They are there. It's important. They fix the vehicles. October.
October.
Trucks with flamethrowers. Excellent.
Excelente. I built a Gene Stealer Colt rock grinder.
With flamethrowers.
Yeah, the one I got from you.
Yeah.
And it's got the clearance flamethrower on it.
Excellent. Good choice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Because that's great. And because I want to use it. And because, honestly, it is a really cool model. And even though Derek hates them.
But it has a flamethrower.
Well, I wouldn't say he hates them. He just was unhappy they were relatively useless in the game against me.
Did he run over enough dudes with them?
I think he did. He didn't think he did.
I mean, that's probably what they're used for, mostly, right? Beep, beep.
But did he have use of a flamethrower?
I don't remember there being one on there.
Yeah.
I know there's a tactic where you cram a bunch of dudes in the back with dynamite and they ride up and they're like, hey, hold this for me, buddy.
Well,
and then
yeah.
they drive off.
Well, that's, I think that's more the trucks than because the rock grinder doesn't carry a whole lot of people. It's only like 6 dudes, but whatever.
Justice.
Doesn't matter.
Flamethrowers.
Who cares? So, let's see. Moving on to tie into our hobby lore discussion. I can't talk today. I just
That's all, folks.
Our hobby and lore discussion. Well, one of the things, that I love is cross-universing with the hobby. Like, my AdMech are all Forge World Megaton, which is taken directly from Fallout. And I've created this entire narrative in my head where literally the planet that Fallout happens on is supposed to be Earth, but it's literally an alternate Earth that was in the Imperium that was colonized, and they just didn't find it during they found it during the Great Crusade. But by that point, there had been all those apocalyptic things happening, and it got to the 1950s, and they got more technological, but it never went past that 50s look with their technology. And then the apocalypse happened, and everything was wasteland warfare. And then eventually the Great Crusade came, and the Adeptus Mechanicus said, these guys kind of have robots and nuclear fusion and stuff. We're going to check this planet out, and we're going to make it one of ours. Cool, thanks. Thank you, Emperor. Thanks. Take care. And then here we are 10,000 years later, and it's an entire, sector that's kind of ruled by Forge World Megaton. And, there's the Space Marine chapter, the Brotherhood of Steel, that was probably a second or third founding chapter in there, and whatnot. And I have this whole narrative in my head about it that eventually I'll type up and write down where everything is and from, and it fits in and it slots in very well. And that's why, like, my Armiger Helverins, they're painted olive drab with metal and brass, kind of coppery brass trim. Their decals are all World War II era tank decals from the from the 50s and stuff like that. And then they have names on them, Fireball and stuff like that, which to be honest, you can sue me if you want, or I'm sure these models wouldn't be allowed to be played at the Warhammer World in Texas because I put dust decals on them.
But it looks cool.
It does look cool. And Dust has like the coolest 1950s, but yet modern era World War II looking decals out there. So I bought a bunch of packs of them and was like, cool, these will work for my dudes.
These little things will look very much good on my miniatures.
Yes. Yeah. And it works. And I don't need them for my Dust miniatures.
Yeah.
So, they all go on there. And I've had so much fun building and painting and doing that army that it's ridiculous. I'm not even done with it entirely yet. I'm like, I'm going to put it aside to work on my Space Wolves and some other stuff, and then I'm going to go back to it. I'm going to finish the Dragoons and the Ballistaries and the Onager Dune Crawlers, and maybe even add more, the Castellan robots and stuff like that, to where I have a really cool force I can, pull whatever from.
Danger, Will Robinson.
Right. And
Danger, Will Robinson.
And I love the aesthetic and I love the look. And so, we're going to get into talking about on the hobby, converting and building your things and bringing in some of these other sci-fi elements and different paint schemes and different ways you can do things and ideas maybe for that.
My favorite thing, hands down, to converting is Imperial Guard.
Oh, yeah.
I have over a dozen half-done Imperial where I'm like, this is a really cool miniature, and I'm going to turn them into Imperial Guardsmen. I have an entire 200-plus samurai guardsmen miniatures, and they're literally just like samurai minis with las guns, and I'm like, go samurai warriors, pew pew las guns. I even bought some of the test for honor terrain and stuff for them.
Nice.
I just bought a whole slew of Roman miniatures because they were like, oh, these are on super sale. What would you like? I'll take 20 sprues, please. I'll take 200 Romans. Haven't touched them yet, but they are destined to have las guns at some point in time, and flamethrowers.
As well,
lots of flamethrowers, yeah. And then, just in the name of Rome, right?
Right.
Or if they'd give me rules for Adeptus Arbites in Warhammer 40k, Roman Arbites would be awesome.
Yes. These are the Ultramarines Arbites.
These are the Arbites for Ultramar, and if you think otherwise, you're wrong.
They're marching from a crag all over your face with a truncheon.
I love converting.
Yeah.
For my samurai army, my Ogrins are all the Ogre Kingdoms
Yeah.
models. So you have the big old Asian style Mongol ogre dudes and
Nice.
stuff. But the dynamic poses, one of the big things I see a lot online, people are talking about is like how super crazy awesome modern models are becoming, and some of the like super crazy dynamic posings and stuff is actually taking away from the need sometimes. So you're seeing a little less converting and stuff in a modern era.
Right, you are, and some of it has gotten easier. Some of it has not. I had a Wraith Knight that I snagged, and unfortunately the cats destroyed it because it was sitting on my old game table downstairs.
I mean, it was in their way. Their cats.
Yeah, it was
Justice.
broken into pieces. They went, "Fuck this." But I literally, and I mean, eventually I'm going to do another Eldar army, and I've almost pulled the trigger on it several times because I really want to do one, because they are so easy to move and change the poses on because of the way their armor is done and the joints are worked. And I had the Wraith Knight like totally like with a hand out and the sword, like up, like complete like samurai, like I'm coming at you, pose.
No one can see it right now, but Eric is doing an epic pose.
Yes, nobody cares. They can figure it out. They can use their mind's eye. But I had him pose like that, and it was this really cool pose that I did, and it was really easy to do with the new plastics and everything. And I see so many people just literally they just slap it together, and it's like, man, cut a little bit, do a little bit here and there,
It's
don't
so
be afraid.
easy to saw a joint,
Right.
change the position,
Right.
and throw a little modeling putty on it. Especially now with the way the joints and stuff are designed on a lot of the models, it is fantastically easy.
Right. And I mean, like, Derek and I have talked about that, like, plastic versus resin versus metal.
Resin.
It is so much easier to just hack these things up and put them together how you want them and tweak them around and do different things. And
Metal, you basically just aren't doing that.
yeah.
Converting back in the metal days was like, and I cut this laser gun off to pinch it to this gun.
Oh,
And
I
that was
remember
my
because
epic conversion.
do you remember the 25th anniversary like Warhammer Fantasy thing when they also released that big silver miniatures case, but it was just hobby tools? And
Oh,
they had
yeah,
that big
yeah.
bone saw looking saw for
Yep.
converting your metal miniatures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's still hidden in the basement somewhere.
No, I don't have that anymore. But it was like a mini bone saw. It was crazy looking.
The hobby saws are it's a tool. I don't think a lot of hobbyists and a lot of gamers, they don't really have them or use them as much anymore.
Yeah.
Things just kind of push fit and things go together so easily now. And it used to be you had to do things like that sometimes to get dudes to fit into regiments or to get dudes to go together appropriately. You would be cutting and converting and kit bashing and stuff. But now, that's kind of a little bit of I don't see it a lot. And so when I do, it's really exciting, especially like epic poses on models or whatever.
Mhm.
The ones I see a lot are, it's really popular is the Imperial Knight stepping on random vehicle number A.
Right.
That's the one you see a lot lately.
One of my favorites was the podcast I listen to a lot is Independent Characters, and they have a whole Facebook group community that's really really awesome. And there was a guy on there that there was actually two guys on there that kind of took the disco typhus, and one changed the scythe to the other hand, and then his hand that normally is holding up the scythe, he's holding up, one of them was holding up a towel and one of them was holding up like an Imperial Guardsman. And they were just awesome conversions. And it turned him from like this silly disco looking typhus to like, oh my God, that guy looks terrifying.
The new Typhus,
Mhm.
the new one, yeah. He does
Yeah.
have kind of a
Oh,
bit
dude,
of
he's staying alive.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a
Staying alive. Staying
pose to
alive.
him.
Woo, woo, woo.
But then
But
I've seen some other ones that had poses that made me question things. So that
yeah, there's been a lot of those over the years. I actually bought, because I'm doing the Gene Stealer cults list as like 2 squads of 10 neophyte hybrids.
Mhm.
So I got a unit of 20 of the Solar Auxilia from Forge World,
They are gorgeous.
and they're all gonna get neophyte hybrid heads.
So that you can have 20 dudes with orange jumpsuits with neophyte hybrid heads with armor padding on their orange jumpsuits.
I mean, they don't necessarily have orange jumpsuits.
They have those like padded, quilted Void suits. Which ones are you using?
It's the Solar Auxilia. Let's see. I'll pull up a
I don't
picture
know.
here.
I haven't looked at Solar Auxilia in a long time. Like I remember some of the earliest ones they had like one of the things I remember was the like almost gambeson that they were wearing on them. They're what is it? The void suits or whatever.
Yeah, these guys. No, they have more like it's almost like a heavy armor look.
Yeah, it's like armor over the top of gambeson. It's plate armor over the top
Yeah.
of like quilted armor or quilted padding.
Yeah,
So they're literally wearing like medieval gambeson with plate armor on it.
yeah.
So you totally paint that like a bunch of orange prisoner suits.
I'm not.
But they could have tire armor, Eric.
No,
They could be raiders.
no,
Fallout. Megadeth.
no. They're not. They're not the. There's no.
Flamethrowers.
I'm not doing that.
I'll settle for flamethrowers.
But I thought they'd be really, really cool to use.
Yeah, they will.
as neophyte hybrids
Instead
and
of
so-
Cadian, just like
Right.
Cadians with alien. I was so disappointed in that kit when they were like, "Oh, here are the super elite converted Cadian neophyte hybrid dudes," and it's literally just Cadian shock troops with quasi Gene Stealer heads.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. There's way better ways to do it. So. Yep. They're gonna be cool. I can't wait till all that stuff comes in so I can start doing that, working on that
Operation
project.
Tinker.
But I want to finish a lot of my Space Wolves first, or at least my unit of Grey Hunters that I'm working on currently.
That's the never-ending story of hobbyist. Is only I could finish, or when I finish, or how much more. We always have so many projects.
I'm kind of like I'm gonna finish the Grey Hunters, then I'm gonna then I'm gonna like start focusing more on my Gene Stealer cults, because I have all the base like Fang and Fenris blue, Fenrisian gray blue colors. I've airbrushed them with all that so that they at least have a color on them.
They can go onto the table now, kind of.
Yeah, and I can only be laughed at halfway. I did finish 2 of them, and I bought an entire army's worth of. It's a product from Gamers Grass, and they're called Battle Ready Bases, and they're already pre-flocked, done effect wise and everything. You just got to glue your mini on them.
Like they're even colored. You don't.
Yeah, you don't got to paint them. Nothing.
Oh man, that sounds like cheating.
It is
On your
and it's
miniatures.
amazing, and I don't mind one bit because I don't. Let me rephrase it. I don't mind basing because it does make them look good, but I try to be as lazy as possible.
Oh no, I love basing.
I don't.
That's one of probably my favorite parts because you can get so creative with it, like layered pools and stuff and things. But then again, I'm lazy. I don't finish my miniatures. I'll be like, these are really cool and they're going to be awesome in battle, and then they're airbrushed and have mud on them, and woo, we're done.
Yeah.
But the characters and stuff, look at this cool broken car glass window that this guy's standing on, or epic things you can do on
the
bases.
most time I've ever spent on doing a customized base is the Vault Boy Call.
Yeah.
That is the most time, and that base is like, it's a bunch of Gale Force 9 stone slate stuff from their little sets, and cork, and a whole bunch of just acrylic paste, and then I just painted the crap gray and dry brushed the hell out of it, and add some tufts of grass and green flock on it here and there, and then stuck him to it.
I have probably the most recent elaborate ones that I've done are for 30K AdMech.
Mm-hmm.
And I use a lot of, you can buy this at Walmart, every Walmart ever, and every tailoring shop ever. And it's basically like a crocheting plastic net thing. And basically you can cut it up and it looks like, like that corrugated, or not corrugated, but like a grate, like a steel grate.
Mm-hmm.
So I use that, and then wires and pieces of straws and pieces of bits and little bolts, and I bought capacitors and etc. And you just throw a bunch of random crud. You're like, look at this dude who's totally on this Mechanicum ship. It's really great. But one of the coolest things that brought it from rando stuff I threw together that actually made it look decent is I think it's called Green Stuff World. They make these
They have
glass
some cool
rollers,
stuff. Yeah.
and you take these little glass rollers and you just roll it through the modeling putty, and out pops whatever the base design of epic proportion and awesomeness that you've ever needed. However, we found that air dry clay works really, really good with that stuff. But you got to seal it a lot, otherwise it'll start breaking up and whatnot. But conversions, talking about 182 conversions, I think bases is one of the places people can really shine with that stuff.
And I to a lot of the degree, I agree with you. And I honestly think one of the things is that people just over the years, it's like less time, less stuff to devote. But the trick is to just do it. And some people, I think, that are getting into the hobby now, that we've had kind of the explosion since 8th edition came out, where people are so much bigger into 40K now. They just need to literally just do it. And you're not going to, and honestly, if you ever take a conversion or a model that you converted and you put that work into a game store, and someone makes fun of you or talks trash about it, you let me know. I will go out there and I will punch them in the face, because that is just, to me, that's one of the rudest things you can ever do to somebody. Look at all this cool stuff I did. I don't care if to me it looks like absolute garbage.
Doesn't matter if it looks like jank. They took the time to do it.
I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And I just want to encourage them in their hobby to continue to do things and don't ever want to discourage anybody.
Hands down, my favorite part of going to a lot of the grand tournaments or to the big competitive scene events is the
seeing all the stuff.
Or the seas. Like, I got my butt kicked a couple years ago, and I was telling the guy I was playing literally that it's such a great time to play, just because you really see on the battlefield, the painted army versus the painted army. It looks cooler. It feels cooler. Most of them have at least modest, decent terrain.
Right.
Usually, most everybody uses the neoprene mats nowadays, like the battle mats. That
I love them.
Hands down, they're great. And then you just little terrain, a little bit of that, and 3 or 4 colors and some basic washes and stuff. And it really brings the battlefield to life, as opposed to, here's my gray dude which I understand. You want to play. You want to get it on the battlefield ASAP. You want to get the games in. But it's a world of difference between that game. And then when someone's taking the time to do conversions or upscale it.
Right.
I don't care if it looks like bunghole. It's fantastic because they took the time to do it.
Right.
There's a little agreement there. Hey, buddy, if you paint your stuff and bring your little army man, I'll bring my army man, and both of our Legos will look cool together when they blow each other up. And it does not matter. And that is kind of the ending point. And I think we were probably going to talk about a couple other things, but we might save that for next podcast, because especially Andrea, her
Song of Ice and Fire.
Ice and Fire that she brought up.
We
didn't even get to open it and look at it and talk about it and everything.
Well, we did open it and look at it earlier, and I'm very jealous because I'm still hoping my Kickstarter shows up within the next 2 months.
Well, maybe for next episode we can have a game or 3 of it done, and that way y'all can smash talk it properly.
Right.
Possibly. We'll see. We'll see what we can get in the next 2 weeks.
Right.
And we'll see what all happens. But for now, I think we're pretty close to about max time and on the podcast here. So I think we'll be calling it quits. We hope that all of y'all have a great time hobbying and gaming over the next 2 weeks before we see you again. And as for now, this is me, Eric, and Paul, and Andrea signing off, saying good night. Say good night, guys.
Good
Good
night.
night.
They don't really care if you have a good night. In fact, they hope your dreams are filled with lobster craws.
And flamethroers.